One. Welcome to another episode of Progress Always. Mike Anders here with my boy Logan out of Venice, founder of Deuce Gym, author of Going Right, and the wizard behind the curtain, and the Hold the Standard Summit. You got so much going on, dude. There's marketing. There's another book in the works, international travel with the summit. I mean, what's not keeping you busy right now?
Man, that's not anything I need help with. I think I got the overcommitment, busy life thing down. I think if I was coaching myself, there's probably a conversation around refinement. So yeah, moving in a lot of different directions. But I think we've known each other for long enough to know how these things can kind of stack. I think if I
Mhm.
was defending myself from what I just said, the joke I just made, is I'm trying to build things intelligently such
Mhm.
that they can sustain themselves and we can, to use the language you always hear me using, like transcend a bit. And so these things stack on each other. I'm definitely doing a lot, but it all works because I'm not doing everything and hopefully
Right.
they're built well, So that's the
Mhm.
idea in theory. I also would
Yeah.
like a vacation ASAP.
Speaking of coaching yourself, are you still working with Kara, Dr.
Right
Miller?
now, we're not formally, but we talk often, and so I get
Yeah.
the informal friend, the friend connect on that. But that's a good point, man. Like I think um, the idea of everyone needing a coach is obviously thrown around and is true. I think a lot of people listening to this podcast probably have the coach for the clean and keeping pull up dialed in, and maybe there's some other kinds of coaching that we could use, and so Kara is definitely that for me in a big way.
Yeah. The going back to, the duration of our relationship, I got to be there for your initial Hold the Standard Summit at the games in Wisconsin
Yeah, in Madison,
in
yeah.
in 17, 18.
Yeah,
Um, and then we hosted it a couple of years later. And in between, you had started this, taking it international, and leveraging your network and connections to build an audience overseas. And what, for those who don't know, Hold the Standard, as opposed to Deuce Gym and Logan
mhm,
Gelbrich,
yeah.
what was the impetus? Like, what clicked in your mind that I need to create this because it either doesn't exist, or I could do it better, or I just want to do it my way and create that message?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So, to take it a few steps back, I'm a person who has a background and all that stuff. I also have a business, a couple gyms under this brand Deuce, in the Los Angeles area, and those gyms are specific, for-profit experiments in the things that I'm teaching in the Hold the Standard Summit. So if I was looking at this as like a hierarchy, the Hold the Standard concept lives above everything that I do from a business perspective, you know, even above like the marketing agency, even above the book I wrote and the education that I do. And the reason for that is the name is maybe worth explaining. Hold the Standard is sort of a North Star motto for us as a brand, but what it means is the shortest way to say the story is, um, we believe in this idealistic aim, the standard, meaning peak potential, perfection, idealism, these kinds of synonyms. That's what we call the standard. And then an observation that even the best in the world are not yet there at their idealistic full potential realized state. And so we are in the world with this belief that leadership is the thing that helps us navigate this bridge between where we are and where we could be. It navigates the bridge between dissatisfaction and satisfaction. If you don't like the way some things are, the only agency filled way to reconcile that, like the only way to go about that with agency, is leadership. And our definition of leadership is to be in leadership is to be responsible for the results. So it's basically this idea of leadership around taking responsibility. And so when we say hold the standard, we're not saying we are the standard, we're so tight, we're the best, whatever. It's actually that, like, no, we will be responsible for this gap between where we are and where we ought to be. And that is a model that inside of it is a endless, perpetual motion device, really. And so that's the background on kind of what hold the standard is. How it started was an accident. I think it was the first time I was on Barbell Shrugged, for whatever reason, that conversation impacted a lot of people. One of the people who was largely impacted by it is this guy called Kitcho, who is an Aussie rugby player living in Spain, and he hit me up, and he is the most persistent person I've ever met in my life. He hit me up and was like, "Okay, so how do I do what you do with my gym?" And I was like, "I don't know, like, come visit. I don't know, like, I'm not gonna tell you Zoom like everything I think. What are you talking about? And he said, well, that's not a great answer. So you should do this differently. You should have a course that you teach. I'm like, okay, it sounds like you're telling me like to get to work. Like, I don't work, like, what is this call? And he was like, what if I organized a thing in the north of Spain where European gym owners came and you would teach us how to do it, and you wouldn't have to pay anything, and like, it's the north of Spain. We'll live like kings. The food's great. It's cheap. It's beautiful. Whatever. I'm like, say less, bro." You know? And so the first summit was actually in the north of Spain in a town called Oviedo, and it's like really kind of cringe to think about, what it was then. Sorry to everyone who was in attendance. It's like 10 gym owners in like a Spanish version of like a WeWork, and
Mhm.
it's me just doing my best to sum up from a principled fashion what we do. And it was a rep, it was a good rep. And then I I began my journey with Dr. Miller and realized that the future better version of me as a leader would be able to articulate the principles of what we do separate of gym ownership or the fitness industry. And so
Mhm.
that's like the big transformation that the summit took. Was I had an internal unspoken goal that more than half of the attendees of the summit would be non-gym owners. And if that were true, then I am communicating in a way that is creating value and effective in the way that, to my standard, would make this experiment work. And that's what it became. And so, long-winded way of saying, the Hold the Standard Summit is a 2-day course on a concept called adaptive leadership. Okay, and adaptive leadership is a key concept that we could spend the whole podcast on. And I think it is the most timely conversation that we can have as people. And I know that that's a big statement, but if you
Mhm.
go back to what I said earlier, there are these gaps everywhere in our life where there is dissatisfaction, lack of performance, lack of results, whatever. And based on the definition that we selfishly use for leadership, there is kind of one solution for it, which is you take ownership of it, and
Mhm.
that's a leadership question with a leadership answer. So it's a 2-day course on adaptive leadership, and something that we call the design of developmental organizations. So the idea is that you can build teams, group dynamics, organizations that by their own design improve over time. And that's not normally how we operate. It's how we would like to operate, but unless we understand group dynamics well and set some things in motion, most groups devolve over time. They get to a
Mhm.
certain level of ability and then plateau or get worse. And our industry is a really great case study for that. You know, like I believe I'm an optimist, but I'm kind of a dick in some ways, and there's a pessimism inside of me that if I meet a dude in an airport, and tell me if you resonate with this. If I meet a dude in an airport and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a fitness trainer. I've been a trainer for 30 years." My first thought is this dude is full of shit and not good at his job. That's my first. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
part of that's a thing around time. People who sell you on time are usually not great at what they do, right? But I would say there's a greater chance that I'm right than he's right, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, what about that is how we move it in the world, and it's this like this plateau of skill acquisition. So long story short, I think there's a beautiful intersection where we can build organizations that not only perform better because of what I just said, but the people inside of them are generally more fulfilled, create more value, forever evolving, etc. because of what I just said. You know, we don't want to go to work and mark time,
Mhm.
and every industry has their version of this, but in our industry, you know, and I know we've talked about this, so I'm not like telling you anything new, but there's nothing about you teaching the 7 o'clock class tomorrow at face value that's going to
Mhm.
move you to the next level,
Right.
because you got your 10,000 reps there. So you have tools that other people don't have, which is like you could actually game that 7 o'clock to move the needle for yourself, but it's not doing the thing as it's presented that's going to move the needle, right? Which is the reason why no one listening to us talk right now is getting better at driving, right? It's
Right.
like we
Right.
got good enough to not die, and now we just go from A to B.
Mhm.
But I'm a 30-year driver. Been driving 30 years, baby. What the fuck are you saying? You know?
Right. Right. What exactly does
So
that mean? Yep.
yeah, I kind of like hijacked your question, but that's what the summit is. And yeah, it's a weird thing to sell. It's a weird thing to talk about or communicate about, because we're swimming inside of this world that is the information age. You know what I mean? We're on a podcast right now. We're slanging that info. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but to call and raise us one, no, I'm not downplaying the podcast or podcasts in general. And I think we can all see that there's nothing about just hearing our words that are
Yeah.
gonna move the needle. You know what I'm saying? There
Mhm.
has to be and that's the adaptive part of this thing. There has to be some sort of evolution going on. So um, that's why I think it's most timely, because almost no one is saying that.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, listen to my morning routine, you know? Okay, like, you know what I mean?
Mhm. So here's a question for you as far as like your preference for the model. And I love the fact that you look at everything through the lens of experimentation. It's very, very Tim Ferriss-ish
Hmm.
from a perspective standpoint. You know, why, and there's obviously no right or wrong answer here. I'm genuinely curious. Why go the summit route versus creating a mastermind that meets on a more frequent, more regular basis? What's the rationale for your preference there?
It's a great question. I'm not I'm not gonna claim that I'm doing any of this particularly well, because the last time I taught the summit, I was physically ill, okay, afterwards, because
Oh
what I mean? It's like,
man.
yeah, I Barcelona, um, Monday came around and I was like physically, it's like 2 days of 8 hours of speaking, so
Mhm. I'm gonna
respect.
cut you. I'm gonna cut you off real quick because
Yeah,
I think that people, the things that are overstated, masterminds, seminars, workshops, all those. I think if you've never hosted one, put one on, led that charge, I think people underestimate how physically taxing, how mentally exhausting that effort actually is.
yeah. I
So,
see you doing it.
dude,
I, s-
it's a
I see
lot,
you doing
man.
it. I see
You
your
know.
videos, and I like go to one knee and I go like this. I'm like, I'm like, I'm like, Lord bless this man. He's pouring into these people from a cup that who knows if there's anything in it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, respect. I think there's probably a model there where I can do it. I do consulting, like I call it a mentorship. You
Mhm.
know, um, I'm only consulting 2 companies right now, and the most I've ever done is like 5. I don't know. I think part of me thinks I couldn't do it, but maybe there's something intelligent there where I can kind of protect my energy better. But I
Yeah.
kind of just white knuckle it for 2 days and wish you well. you know.
Dude, I hear you, man. When we do the leaders forum once a month, actually the one's coming up this coming Thursday. It's a daunting task, and my wife reads it really, really well. Like she knows
Mhm.
that it's the second Thursday just based on my energy,
Yeah.
you know. And it's one of those things, and I know you feel this. It's like, to your point, you have your 10,000 reps. You know your shit. You have established yourself as an authority, not only in the fitness space, but also in the organizational development space. And even still, as those seats fill up, well, first of all, you're always first to the party and you're wondering if you're going to be in a fucking empty room. Doesn't matter how
Mhm.
many tickets you've already sold. So
Mhm.
that performance anxiety already exists. And then as those seats fill up, it's like, whatever's supposed to come, like, better show up because I don't feel
Yeah.
like I have it right now.
Yeah. Dude, 100%. Yeah, and I think I don't regulate my energy very well, so it's like the tank will be empty at the end. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
don't know how to
Yeah.
like I don't know how to like meter that. Um, and I think it's important. I guess I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was critically important.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's probably true for most people who are entrepreneurial in any way, shape, or form. Like, you know, I kind of make the joke, and I think this is true. It's probably true. Like, if we had strength and conditioning figured out, like, I wouldn't open a gym. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
the gym comes from a dissatisfaction of what's present.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're
Mhm.
blowing it. We are as a country, as a neighborhood, we are completely blowing it. Therefore, okay, let's like try to work in a solution here.
Mhm.
If I thought that people were all set on the topic of leadership,
Mhm.
I don't like to hear myself speak. I wouldn't be out there talking about this crap. You know,
Yeah.
but it comes from like a real visceral dissatisfaction from what is present. And I think that's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To that end, where did there's the obvious dissatisfaction that comes with, and the solution to that dissatisfaction that comes with opening a gym, right?
Hmm.
Like, whether that's, I can do it better, I hate, there is no solution for my neighborhood, however noble the intentions are, whatever the motivation is, there's that. where
Hmm.
did you where did you come to the leadership end of that same solution to dissatisfaction? How did that evolve beyond fitness?
Well, most everything that I believe that I know of importance is largely informed by my background in sports. Because ever since I was single digit ages, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, I was very committed to the singular goal of being the best baseball player in the world. You know, I wanted to play Major League Baseball more than I wanted to breathe. And I, I'm not the only kid, but I felt different about that because lots of my friends had those same goals. But I felt as I scanned my peer group that of the people who wanted what I wanted, I seemed to be one of the only people who maybe had a clue as to how much work that would take. So I was
Mm.
a psychopath about preparation at a very young age, and that, I think my last season, I think I was 24 years old, 23, 24 years old. So you're talking about like 15 years or more, math major, of a concerted effort of basically problem solving. It's like I want X and I have to figure out why I can't yet have X. And it's, oh, you got to be faster, you got to be stronger, you got to learn to stay inside the baseball longer and use the whole field. It's like all of the things that contribute to you playing Major League Baseball are on the table, and you got to solve this puzzle. And then I observed when I went to college, I had a very profound experience because at every level, it's like, oh, things get things get different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even the
Mhm.
same sport. From high
No.
school, you're like the man, and it's one thing, and then you go to college, and it's like, well, like people got on airplanes to sit in this room. Like, what? Like, and the speed in which you will be replaced at that level is in a second. I saw all high school All Americans be deleted off the face of the earth because they couldn't buy into a mission.
Right.
And
Mhm.
and I had this like kind of out of body experience. I think I've shared this one other time. It's like first meeting, freshman year, team meeting, coaching staff files in. You got 30 guys in a room. It's awkwardly quiet because there's some nerves, whatever. Coach Hill, our head coach, comes in, and he had a power move. I do this one sometimes too. He'd come in like 4 minutes late every time on purpose. We had a culture. I don't even know what happens if you show up late. Like I think like a I've never seen it. I think you get publicly executed is what I thought. You know what I mean? It's like, okay.
Mhm.
And so everybody's sitting in the room, the chatter stops, it's quiet for a full 2 minutes, which is an eternity. And then the head coach walks in and you can hear a pin drop, and then it's on. And what I realized as this young person in the room, I'm the new guy here, was I go, holy crap, this guy feeds his family or not based on whether us idiots can figure this out. And
Mm.
everything he's about to tell us, all the standards he's about to set, all the rules he's about to make, the schedule, can you have facial hair or not? Do you wear your pants up or down? Do you wear the whole thing is to win more baseball games. This is a leadership and organizational culture time right now with consequences. And I realize that when you're trying to do the hardest things in the world, leadership it always is going to fall back on this question of leadership. And to fast forward those 4 years, we were able to accomplish some things at that program that had never happened before. We really overachieved. It was a really special time, and it was this culture thing that was like our X factor. And so it's pretty imprinted on me in a big way as to how the best teams in the world can operate. And that was from a very like skin in the game, front seat thing. And then it was just
Mhm.
a coincidence that at the University of San Diego, they built this leadership school. I had enough credits to like do the leadership school minor, and that's where I meet Dr. Miller. And so I was sort of like supported academically at the highest level from what is now the sort of leading conversation at Harvard with Bob Keegan, and this adult development conversation that's happening was like the other half of this conversation brought together. And
Mm.
so it's kind of like the secret weapon. I think that I could interpret the gym business as recruiting these, like, world's best coaches, and then, getting a really nice loan, and making sure that we have the spinniest, nicest, shiniest barbells, and that's how we can create value. Or we can do it the culture way, and build something that just is about that life, so to speak, and so that we try to do the latter.
Yeah. Where does I'm so curious about your perspective on this. Where does meritocracy fit within your model, and why do you feel like most meritocracies fail?
That's a great question. So, I believe I presented this framework to you at the summit, but meritocracy is a pretty advanced characteristic of groups. Okay, so if we revert back to the most archaic forms of groups, they're generally fear-based, power dynamics from fear. You see these dynamics present even to this day in you know organized crime groups, gangs, street gangs, etc. I was just listening to a podcast. History repeats itself a bit with these kinds of street gangs. So who was it? Somebody was talking about the dynamics in Chicago, maybe, and the law enforcement there worked really hard to crack down on the drug scene, and so they went after and really were finally able to apprehend the leaders of these organizations, these gangs, and locked them up. And the result was actually an increase in violence because, as you heard in the summit, um, organizations designed in such a simple, archaic way struggle with disruption like that. Okay, so there is not enough structure to know that when the main guy goes down, who's the vice president of the Crips. It's like we don't really talk about that. Right. Okay, so now the block is open season, and a bunch of people got to get killed to figure out who is the top dog, and who the top dog
Mhm.
is decided by with violence, fear. And that's not the only way to organize a group. There's this next level above, which is this kind of like rigid structure that I explained it as the army, right? And so
Mhm.
organizations that have structure and a long view approach. It's the reason why you'll have a general and a lieutenant and a private level in an organization, for example, or a president and a vice president, and hierarchy and all of that. The problem with organizations that are limited by hierarchy, I think I gave the example of the Catholic Church in our summit, right? It's like you can think about how to create change in the Catholic Church. It's not that the best ideas win. If you're a up and coming cardinal, bishop, you're never gonna be a difference maker in a way that the people above you are because of the rigid hierarchy, and there's good reason for that. The Catholic Church is gonna be all set for the next 300 years or 1,000 years or whatever, but it doesn't speak to pivoting, adjustments, best ideas coming to the top. It's a slow moving organization. Hierarchy shows up later, kind of this next stage. I mean, sorry, meritocracy shows up later, which sort of says, you know what, if you're the best person with the best ideas on the team, you'll be rewarded for that. So it's the reason why, if you walked into any major company in America and you are a sales guy and you have ideas to increase sales by 50%, you're going to be handsomely rewarded for that. Doesn't matter if you're young, old, if you've been here a while, etc. So this idea of meritocracy and the best ideas winning is a lofty gold standard. We want to be in that place, and so you got to kind of create the container that supports that. Meritocracies break down. I think that they can break down when there isn't true open trust and exchange of of essentially the truth in an organization. So when people talk about organizations with politics, politics are generally when the truth can't be spoken about. Certain people are played favorites and it's a pseudo meritocracy. I think that our job as leaders is to create the container for the exchange of the best information possible, which is the truth. We
Mhm.
don't generally have a hard time sharing the comfortable, positive parts of the truth. We generally have a difficulty sharing the harder, more difficult, negative parts of the truth. And this creates elephants in the room. It creates politics. It disrupts the opportunity for meritocracy. So so I think that ultimately the way that we talk about it is we're trying to build a container with unique levels of trust and willingness. And if trust and willingness is through the roof, then generally the stage is set to share the truth. And with the truth, you can start to build something that's really important for meritocracies, in my opinion, which is this idea of believability. So if let's say there's six of us in a room and you have an idea about how to move the needle next quarter for this company, if you're a believable person, meaning a person with a track record in moving the needle for an organization like ours, then your weight should hold more, your opinion should hold more weight than mine if I don't have experience in this field, or I don't yet have a track record, etc. And it's over time of weighing opinions and weighing efforts based on believability that we start to support a true meritocracy where the best ideas get a crack and track records improve that, and then we can kind of iterate as we go. But the highest desire has to be for the truth. And
Mhm.
if that's not the case, then you build these self-sealing traps in organizations where they actually can't get better. And that sounds dramatic, but I think anyone listening to this right now can relate to an example. And the way I'll say it is this: in your team or in your organization, what cannot be talked about? Like what's off limits? You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
what's insane about these things, because everybody's thinking of something, might be small, might be big, whatever. The joke is that we think that because it's not talked about, it's not there. But there's insane wisdom in these organizations, right? Where everyone knows about the thing that we can't know about. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So when it's a no-fly zone, it's like we're all just lying to each other. We can't really talk about what's real in here. And things like that can be really toxic to meritocracies, I think.
Yeah. So how does if it's if what makes a meritocracy go is the truth above all else, how does Logan go about handling the moment when somebody tests that narrative and tells you the truth as a leader that you may not necessarily want to hear?
Well, um, in theory, I'm open to being wrong about this. We have a culture that this is so open and repeated in our language that it wouldn't be earth shattering for someone to pull someone aside and say, "Hey, I have some feedback for you."
Mhm.
Based on some things that we do culturally, we're at a place where I can kind of look around the team and bet all the money in my wallet that if someone did that, they would search for how this feedback might be true about them. Okay, and the only way you get to that premise is you have to address the elephant in the room on this growth versus fixed mindset idea. You know what I'm saying? So if you never have a conversation about what feedback really is and the power of feedback, uh, most humans, if you went to like, let's say, a stereotypical office workplace, if you pulled someone aside and said, "Hey, I don't like how you communicate. I just gotta be honest with you, man. It's passive aggressive. Your emails are brutal. Everyone knows it, and I'm here to tell you, man, you got to cut it out because it's not helpful to the team. And I really want you to do well, and I want to do well, and I want to be a better teammate to you. But it's just I can't do that when you're that way. That's how you're coming across. Most people, if we don't address the power of feedback and get on the same page about how this is a place where we exchange feedback, the reaction to that is, well, what do you mean, dude? I didn't mean what? That's not how I defense, defense, defense. You're wrong. Dodge, bob, weave, whatever, right? So now you
Mhm.
create this culture where it's like you can't even really tell anybody anything
Yep.
unless it's great job and here's your raise and you look so
Mhm.
good and whatever, right? And so we front load our cultural experience around this notion that you can't work here unless you at least don't understand the power of a growth mindset and you're on your way to developing one.
Mhm.
You cannot even take out the trash here for free. You can't be an intern here if you don't understand that this is a culture of feedback,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And then when you start at that stage, we have like a lot of places where feedback just shows up because that's what time it is, like
Yep.
you and I meet on Friday, and it's the time for you to tell me how I can be better. And that's never awkward because we knew that 9 o'clock was the time that you tell me to do that.
Yeah.
And we just are so waving this flag that it's normal for us to, and I think this is the pinnacle. I've always said that trying to build a culture where not only do we exchange negative feedback in the appropriate places that we've designed, but the water cooler talk is not that bullshit. It's real. It's like, "Hey, dude, I
Mhm.
gotta shoot you straight, man, like, that wasn't cool, X, Y, and Z," right? Is normal. That's baked in, and, I'll give you an example. It's very common in our organization to end a meeting with someone about anything. Like, it could be like, "Hey, let's go grab coffee and catch up." Like, not even a formal meeting, and the meeting will end with one teammate saying to the other teammate, "Hey, do you got anything for me? You got any feedback?" And, like, when I hear that, I'm like, yes, dude, that is where we want to live because the curiosity isn't how I'm right. It's not seeking validation. It's like, help me be better,
Mhm.
and that's how we try to create this environment.
Yeah.
Um, and just a note on the meritocracy thing, we have this point of view, this shared belief around leadership. Because of the definition I gave you earlier, if by our definition, leadership is simply being accountable to the results, um, then it can be shared, right? It's not like, well, Michael owns the gym, so he has 90% of the leadership, and then 10% is divided by us idiots. It's like indivisible, like
Yeah.
love. Like how much responsibility can you take? Like we can all take
Mhm.
all of it.
Right.
And so this idea of shared leadership is people are constantly being presented with the opportunity to take more responsibility,
Mhm.
right? So it is a true meritocracy in our eyes because anyone can rise to a level that's never been risen to before. Like I've written contracts for employees at this gym that I know don't exist anywhere in the country. That nowhere. I mean, maybe that one guy at Alabama who whatever gets like 500 grand and he yells a lot and he's like the man. Um, but like real jobs where it's like this has never existed before. And how did this person get it? They got it because they took it,
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, if you're an intern and you don't know anything about anything, you can't take a responsibility for a lot. What you
Yeah.
can take responsibility for being on time, mopping really well, having great handwriting. I don't know. Like, what are the things you can take responsibility for? But then soon it's like, hey, can you read this book and can you do a 20-minute lecture on it?
Mhm.
Take okay, okay. Damn, yep. Jacob just gave a talk on intra-abdominal pressure. Like, what? What's going on, bro? Okay, and then you take more, you take more. And then when you have an idea, you're a believable person. This person says he's going to do something, says she's going to do something and they do it, I'm down. Let's go. Right. And that's how
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
go.
I love that, man. And what comes to me is something that we've implemented and woven into our culture. And it's that the good to great conversation is the only one worth having.
Right.
The, we've very intentionally built in that honest conflict as opposed to dishonest harmony.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not here to walk on eggshells and tell you how great you're doing when you're doing a shitty job or make you feel better about a subpar performance, and made it okay to confront those things, obviously in a as tactful as it needs to be had approached way, but even still it's being addressed. Right. And the power in that is now somebody who's not familiar with Next Level, who doesn't know me, can walk into this place, have the experience, and have been here for 2 weeks, 30 days, and one day stumble upon me. We get into a dialogue, and they're like, "Oh shit, you're the owner.
Yeah.
I didn't know that."
Yeah.
And what I find genuinely awesome about interactions like that is it validates the culture we have here in that the team has taken ownership for that experience.
Totally.
The clients and members aren't waiting for Michael to show up to do this magic trick that makes the experience exponentially better. No. They've taken it upon themselves to make sure that incredible, call it Disney-esque experience happens with or without me.
Yeah.
To the extent that people don't even know that I'm the guy.
Totally. That's the best feeling. When someone asks me how long I've been working out at the gym, I love that.
Nailed it.
Yeah, my eyes glaze over and I say a long time. A long time, man. Yeah. For a minute. You know. Yeah, for sure. And I think, what I'll tell you this because you hopefully you believe it, but it probably doesn't feel appropriate to say it, which is that looks really easy. What you just described looks very easy, and it's deceptive because people who do anything really well, they make it look easy. And the deceptive part is people who get close to the action think, "Oh, obvious. This is so obvious. I could do this." And no, sir, you cannot because what that is a certain level of mastery over that responsibility to where it's like you can be in charge without letting everyone know you're in charge, and it's a certain holding of space that is really tough to do, and it takes like going through the experience of I don't know anything and I need to learn something, and then I learn something and it is crushing me to know this, and I'm gonna parrot and do a poor job of like regurgitating this in someone else's style, and then I'm gonna own that well enough to like really have dominion over this, and then the complexity goes through the roof when you add one other person, right?
Mhm.
And then a second, and then a third, and then a fourth, and that's really incredible mastery over y'all's group dynamic. That's the dream.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. It's not easy, the and I know this. Um, the I remember our very first conversation on the mic years ago when you looked dead in the
Yeah,
camera.
I know
You said
exactly what you're talking about.
You're a good coach. You're not rare.
Yeah. Oh,
And
man.
dude, it was it was so triggering for me in terms of what needed to happen here, in that the there needs to be a process, a way to make the team, so to speak.
Mhm.
And you know, that's why I find so much value in these relationships. Like, we're not just having this conversation because I needed somebody to talk to on my podcast. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
I value your experience. I value your perception of the universe. I value what you bring to the table as not only a friend, but also a peer in entrepreneurship who's building something great and doing something wonderful beyond the fitness space at a human global level. And to the point you made before we got on the show, like, as we evolve, the circle gets smaller, and the ones that remain, much like making the team at next level, have made the team,
Mhm.
because of that shared curiosity, that interest in our own evolution. And we can check in and, hey, what's the great thing that you're building now? you know
Mhm.
what insight can I provide? Where do you need help? How can we leverage each other to bring that to fruition? you know and I think it's been my experience in our space that those relationships are extremely rare,
Yeah.
where we can have that give and the take. And I want you to come and present, hold the standard, Deuce stuff at next level, and I don't feel less than, or that our brand or our mission is compromised by having an authority such as yourself come do the thing for
Mhm.
our people.
Mhm.
And I guess I'm curious, has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, I think that, um, a an unspoken through line there is, like, I haven't known you your whole life, but for all the parts that I've known you for, you've never been a person about you needing me or anybody else to know what you've done and who you are, because that's not where we're headed. We're headed to some new bigger place, and you've gleaned enough knowledge and experience and expertise as a Marine for a lifetime. People will claw the rest of their life to glean the insight that you gleaned years ago. In that, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the wall behind you that's important, and you but that's not what we're talking about. You're going forward, and that's the reason why someone can come up to you in the gym and be like, "Oh, I didn't even know you own this place," because of the conversation isn't, "Yo, yo, it's me. Look," right? And I think that our industry is really ripe for people who are going through whatever they're going through, growing up wherever they've grown up, and this is a validation play. Right? You got more chest to bar pull-ups than anybody in your neighborhood, and you think that means something. Dog, no one gives a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean anything. Actually, the only thing that would mean something about that is if you were curious about, like, how to get another one, you know? How do you put 5 kilos on the bar that you've never put on the bar before? Now you're in the game. Now you got skin in the game. You're a vulnerable human exercising leadership. But if you're going around in the world trying to, like, validate yourself and, like, find who you are and project that on everybody else, um, it's not leadership. It's fragile as all get out. You never have skin in the game. There's always a reason to jump ship and go somewhere else and do some whatever. It's like the unspoken thing, I think, between this, like, small circle group that maybe you and I have and you have with other people is, a curiosity about how to grow, be better, learn, etc. It's not a projection. It's a curiosity about growth, and the irony is, if you can engage in that conversation, you can connect with anyone. Like,
Mhm.
I say this a lot, and I haven't fully thought this through, but I think it's true. I think it's one of the great human ironies that we try to connect, and I say we, I'm generalizing, by projecting our accomplishments, what makes us unique. Like, look at my house or my car or my big front squat or whatever, as a means for connection. It's like a cry for connection, but how am I going about it? I'm trying to separate myself from you. Plus, like, it's hard to connect on all of your accolades and PRs and fringe level efforts, because it's so rare that that would relate to anyone in the world. Meanwhile, the one thing that we can all relate with is this gap between where we are and where we want to be. Like, the vulnerable part of, not to like overuse the V word, but like, that is the one thing that you and I have in common.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know what your lifts are. I don't really care, frankly. But like, that's the first thing we talked about on here. Is like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, what are you working through? Like,
Mhm.
what, right? And that is the thing that all humans share. You walk into any coffee shop in the world, everybody in that place is dealing with something that's edgy, hard, difficult, whatever. But that's not what we want to talk about. You
Mhm.
know. So that's a side benefit to like these organizations who are growth oriented, is it like neutralizes the playing field. Everyone is the same in their edge work, so to speak.
Mhm.
You have an edge, I have an edge, whatever. We can totally connect on that, and it would be really rich and fulfilling and meaningful human interaction. Or we can just flex on each other about how we're different and create distance and separate. Like, it seems like an insane alternative, you know?
Mhm.
And so if there's just enough courage in the system to like do that instead, like, your dinner conversations get better, I don't know, your work relationships get better. That's the real juice of life, you know? I find that the I've seen this in others, people that are far more impressive than me for sure. Um, I might have told you this story before, but, it's like, the last few years of my life, I've been in some rooms where I often felt like, "How did I get here? I don't belong here." Because everybody's a legend. Everybody's in the Hall of Fame of whatever they do. And I misunderstood why those rooms were that way. I used to think, it was like, "Oh, this is just like what famous people do. They hang out with other famous people." But it wasn't that. It was like a locking of the arms of people who are vulnerably pursuing their best self. It's like the antithesis of the complainer culture, compare each other, tear other people down world, right? It's like, I make platinum records and you score touchdowns, and I see you doing that, and that's hard, and my shit's hard, and I need to be with you, because we are vulnerably doing this thing and we are participating in the world with a max effort, full participation. And that's the sauce, man, because the alternative is so easy. It's like, I think life can be so painful that the tug to quit and give up and justify and hang out with other people who are doing that, and try to, it's okay, right? Like, it's just too hard to be vulnerable, and so we just regress, and there's always going to be a tug in that direction. There's millions of people who want to invite you to that party. We got to resist.
Yeah. Yeah. Resist, right? That's it. I think what's the book? The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah,
And
resistance. Yeah.
he talks about resistance, right? It's one of my all-time, and I'm horrible with authors. That's how I know the book is fucking awesome, because I
Fire.
remember,
Yeah.
right? And he
He
talks
was like
about resist.
54 when he wrote that or something. That was
Yeah.
his first hit. He did specifically nothing remarkable his whole life, and he's the man. And he wrote that on
Yeah.
his like 54th birthday. Yeah.
And it's like you got to look for the signs, man. You know, resistance is one of those signs. You know, you talk about that tug towards mediocrity and how easy it is to fall, you know, victim, make that choice, right? To be in that boat, to go to that party, you know, to use your
Yeah.
analogy.
The
And
the leadership thing is, like, forever too. Just like you're saying with
mhm,
this it's forever. It's
mhm,
always on, you know, and I say
yeah,
that, like, the clock doesn't start on the leadership game until there's a problem. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, if you're winning, things are going great, like, who no one needs leadership for that,
mhm,
you know? It's when the shit hits the fan that someone has to emerge, and so, that's why the line is short, man. A lot of people
mhm.
wanna look like the leader, but to live that life is different.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Where can our audience go and support you living that life, holding that standard, putting all that awesome into the world, man?
Well, you can follow me. I'm at Functional Coach on Twitter and Instagram. We started a nonprofit that basically says we believe that all people have unrealized potential. That's what we sort of talked about in this podcast. That's the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But there are some communities that are specifically not really given a seat at the table on pursuing that, and that's the impacted justice system impacted community, people who are substance impacted and housing impacted, and so we help people get off the streets and step into leadership with our nonprofit called Deuce Community Inc. We house about 5 people who are formerly incarcerated, and we've had remarkable success of helping highly motivated people with these lived experiences change their lives. And yeah, you can get involved with what we're doing. A little bit goes a long way with these guys, and that's deucecommunityinc.org. Um, and then I don't know when this comes out, but I'll be in Brooklyn September 23rd and 24th teaching the Hold the Standard Summit. And if anybody's even like a little bit curious about that, I'd love to find a way to get you in the room. Um, and just send me a note. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate you, brother. I'm
I
grateful for
appreciate you.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. This is
I gotta
huge.
I gotta come see you.
Come on. Come on. You
It'd be
got
great.
you're running out of excuses to come to the valley, brother.
I know, dude. My parents would love that too. Yeah.
You got a lot of people that want to see you out here, dude.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, man.
dude.
Thank you for having me on.
We'll oh 100%, man. We'll do it again. And dude, I'm just really I'm happy. I'm grateful. I'm joyful for this experience and our connection, man, and the value that you bring to the table. And for everybody out there, until next time, progress
Yeah.
always.
Thank you.